This video right here is going to piggyback off of a live stream that the Black Authority did pretty much on the same topic. And I wanted to give my take on it because a lot of people are unaware of what's really going on out here. So as you can see by the title, it says Federal Appeals Court says Americans with Disabilities Act protection cover quote unquote gender dysphoria, handing a win to trans people. Now keep in mind, at one point in time, they said that if you was trans or transsexual, as they used to call it, it was labeled as a mental illness. It was in the World Health Organization pamphlet. Of course, remember I had said or mentioned a while back, maybe well over 2 years ago, where they took that out and replaced it with gaming, as if they said gaming was some kind of a disorder that needed to go in the World Health Organization. They took being trans or something along those lines. They replaced it with that. And now they've gotten all of these rights. I told people back then that Obama making same-sex marriage into law back in 2015. I hate when CNN brings that pop-up up. But like I was saying, I said back in 2015 that when Obama signed same-sex marriage into law, don't think that was going to be the only thing that was going to happen. That was just the springboard. That was the launch pad of what was about to come. And here we are. And the crazy part about it is, this isn't the end. I'm almost certain that there's going to be more things coming down the pipeline. Remember, I just did a video about that Miranda Galbraith and the MAPS, minor attracted persons. Now, for those of you who didn't catch the live stream that I did, she has since been fired, and rightfully so, for her stance in wanting to defend them and protect them, when we know what that really is all about. So this article was written on Tuesday, August 16, 2022. Go ahead and go through this and see what they're talking about. A federal appeals court said Tuesday that the Americans with Disabilities Act covers individuals with gender dysphoria, handing a win to trans people in a case concerning a former inmate who alleged discrimination at a Virginia prison. Keep in mind, I did a recent video about a person who was an inmate at a New Jersey prison who identified as trans, but, biologically born a man, now living as a quote unquote trans woman. Well, they still have their equipment attached. The one that can be used to get women pregnant. And they got 2 female prison inmates pregnant. And they ended up moving them to a youth facility. The same thing happened at another prison, but I don't think that they got them pregnant, but I think they were in there sexually assaulting the inmates because, again, they still had their equipment attached. They said that you can identify as a trans woman all you want, but you're still out here slanging and sleeping with these female inmates, whether consensual or by force. But they don't want to talk about that. In a majority opinion issued by a 3-judge panel with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit, the court wrote, in light of the basic promise of equality that animates the ADA, we see no legitimate reason why Congress would intend to exclude from the ADA's protections transgender people who suffer from gender dysphoria. And that's the part right there. All they got to say is that they suffer from gender dysphoria, and boom, they're protected. Gender dysphoria describes an uncomfortable conflict between a person's assigned gender and the gender with which the person identifies, according to the American Psychiatric Association. We have little trouble concluding that a law excluding from ADA protection of both gender identity disorders and gender dysphoria would discriminate against transgender people as a class, implicating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, the ruling read, referring to a constitutional clause that has been used in court to protect minority groups from discrimination. There goes that word minority. Now, where in there do you think black people fit? Most likely nowhere. The treatment of trans inmates has long been a focus of advocates for trans rights, with stories of abuse fueling calls for reforms and more targeted anti-discrimination laws. Activists hailed Tuesday's ruling, saying it will be a helpful precedent for future litigation. Like I told you, this was only the beginning. Future litigation, which means there's more coming. And it's going to progressively get more worse as time goes on. Yes, I said worse. But like I said, they don't want to talk about the inmates that's been in there getting these female inmates pregnant, or in some cases sexually assaulting or violating them too. They leave that part out. And they want to pretend like they don't know what's going on. The case at hand concerned Keisha Williams, a trans woman with gender dysphoria who was held for 6 months at a Virginia prison. I would like to know, are they going to explain why they were there? Though prison deputies initially assigned her to women's housing, they quickly moved her to men's housing when they learned that she was transgender, according to the ruling, which said that while held in the men's facility, Williams experienced delays in medical treatment for gender dysphoria, harassment by other inmates, and persistent and intentional misgendering and harassment by prison deputies. Now, look at all the stuff that I just mentioned there, with the exception of the medical treatment part. That means that now that they are going to be protected under this, unless, of course, it gets overturned, which a lot of people are hoping that it does. That means that, say in the workplace, you work with a person who identifies as trans, but you can clearly see otherwise, and you quote unquote misgender them. If they go to HR under this protection, they can get you fired. And that's the least of your worries. Getting fired would be the least of your worries. I don't think many would want to know what the worst could be. Like I said, they're giving them invincibility now. They are literally trying to put them in the same category as people who have actual ailments, like those who can't walk, people who are blind, people who are deaf, people who, those who can't function in society. Now, these are able-bodied individuals who chose to go and get operations done, or who are choosing to say, I don't feel like I'm this person, because they want so bad for this to be a mental disorder or a mental disability. But these are some of the same people said that they were born this way, or they have so much pride in this. It's like at one point, this would be frowned upon, but now that they see they can get a benefit from it, now they done pulled out the Uno reverse card and said, oh, you know what? You know what I said about this? Yeah, scratch that. It's really that. Amazing how the tables turn when they see that they can get a benefit from it. I'm talking like, that's that leech mentality. Williams sued several individuals connected to the prison, claiming that the way she was treated was a violation of the ADA and other laws. A district court initially dismissed Williams' case on the basis of the ADA's explicit exclusion of gender identity disorders not resulting from physical impairments from protection under the law. Williams appealed, arguing that because the language of the exclusion is dated and undefined, it was up to the court to determine whether gender dysphoria is protected under the ADA. The appeals court, citing an updated medical understanding, reversed the lower court's dismissal. In sum, we hold that Williams has plausibly alleged that gender dysphoria does not fall within the ADA's exclusion for gender identity disorders not resulting from physical impairments, the ruling said. CNN reached out to attorneys for several of the defendants named in the case for comment. Though the matter still needs to go back to a lower court to settle additional questions central to the case, Joshua Ehrlich, an attorney for Williams, told CNN that Tuesday's ruling is a really meaningful win for trans people more broadly, because this opinion applies not just to people who are incarcerated, but for workplace accommodations, for public accommodations. I'm telling you, they're going to abuse the hell out of this. Just like how I told you when the Asian American community got that anti-Asian hate crime bill and they were going to abuse that. And I was right about that. they're going to do the same thing with this. I'm calling it now. The ruling in this case is consistent with the ruling in Bostock several years ago that extended employment protections under the Title IX to trans employees. Title VII to trans employees, he said, referring to a 2020 Supreme Court ruling that said federal civil rights law protects LGBTQ workers. He continued, I think that this ruling in a lot of ways was mandated by the language in Bostock. To the extent that Bostock has created a positive trajectory for trans rights, this is a continuation of that. But it is definitely not the end. A number of advocacy groups signed onto a friend of the court brief for the case co-authored by the LGBTQ legal rights group GLAAD and the National Center for Lesbian Rights. In a statement following the ruling, NCLR's legal director Shannon Minter said that the decision sets a powerful precedent that will be important for other courts considering this critical issue. And Jennifer Levi, the director of GLAAD's Transgender Rights Project, said in the same statement that it would turn disability law upside down to exclude someone from its protection because of having a stigmatized medical condition. Like that's what they're labeling gender dysphoria now. They're labeling it a medical condition. So if you as a man feel like, you were born in the wrong body and that you should really be a woman, or if you were a woman who really feels that they should be a man, and all you say is you have gender dysphoria, then now you're protected. My question is, how will they diagnose this? Is there a diagnosis for this? And if there is, how do you properly diagnose someone for this? Because from what I'm hearing, many are just saying that they have it. Almost like someone who self-medicates or self-diagnose themselves and they don't know what they have. They just tell you what they feel they have. This opinion goes a long way toward removing social and cultural barriers that keep people with treatable but misunderstood medical conditions from being able to thrive. Those are some very cryptic words. That's all I'm gonna say. But yep, that's where we are. And that's what the Black Authority was talking about in his on his broadcast when it came to this topic. Everybody gets protections under any and everything, no matter sometimes how ridiculous it may be. And black people don't get any kind of protection. And we and our ancestors were the one that laid the foundation for all these other groups to get protections, but we don't get a damn thing in return. And this is why we are pushing for reparations. If we was able to benefit off of the fruits of the labor of our ancestors, we wouldn't even probably having a reparations discussion, because reparations would have most likely happened. Then if any other group came in and got what they wanted or got what they felt they needed, then it is what it is. But the point is that never happened. And as you can see, it's still continuing to not happen. And I'm going to also echo something the Black Authority has said in his broadcast. No study. Because, they love to always do studies when it comes to black people. And when we're talking about tangibles and reparations, there's always got to be a study here and a study there and a study here and a study there. But with everybody else, they got it. They just got it. Some of them don't even have to ask for it. And if they do, they only got to make one mention of it. And that's it. Us, we've been talking about this reparations thing for a few years now, and they still dragging their feet. There's only one person right now, who has a high political position that's actually making a little bit of moves. And that's Gavin Newsom. As y'all know already, y'all saw the video I posted about him. But everybody else, especially the useless CBC, to do everything for everyone else but black people CBC, who's just an absolute joke and disgrace in and of itself. Nothing. Crickets. But I bet you they'll bend over backwards for something like this. I'm guaranteeing it. But that's all I'm going to have to say about this. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you are new, be sure to go ahead and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. Also, be sure to have your mobile devices notifications turned on. All the links will be in the description. I'll talk to you in the next one.